Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very, very special episode of the Moving Spotlight podcast. We are here with the cast and crew of the play The Effect, going on right now in West Hollywood. Corbett, I'm actually part of this cast. Can you believe that someone actually cast me in something?
I know.
So,
I'm
shocked. Don't know. You're shocked. I'm just like stupefied. So there are a lot of us here today, folks. There are 7 in total. It's the most we've had on the podcast. So if you hear us saying names before questions, or if people are addressing who they are, it's just so you know who is chatting. But I want to jump right in. And Paul, I'd like to start with you as the artistic director of 66 Productions. How did you find this wonderful play?
I have a few people in my company that are our unofficial readers, and they submit plays to myself and a couple of our producers every season. And this was on our short list just before the pandemic. And then, like everybody, life stopped, and I made a lot of bread. Yep. And was waiting for the theater to reopen. So this has been on our short list for a while. We really try to do a lot of West Coast premieres or world premieres. And this one by Lucy Pebble was right in our wheelhouse and had never been done in LA before.
That's great. And is she writing on anything right now, Lucy Pebble?
Yeah, she is. She is. She's writing on Succession. Actually, I'm not sure if she's on this.
She was on, or is on.
She was. Yeah, she was one of the founders of Succession.
Great. Kymberly, when did you get involved? At what point did you get involved with the play?
Paul showed it to me. He showed it to me. He was really passionate about it. Asked me to read it, said they wanted to do it. And I found it such a brilliant choice, but also really scary and challenging, because usually the writing that I respond to is just really raw and visceral. And this play has so many layers, but I always learned as an artist, if something scares you, you should go towards it. And I really wanted to work with 66 and their vision and their mission. So I read it, and then the more I read it, the more I fell in love with it too. I found the heart of it. I needed to find the heart of it.
Kymberly, when you found the heart of it, when you were so excited to cast, because I know you love going in the casting room and meeting all the actors, what was that process like for you with finding all these great people and John? But like, what was the people that you
shot fired? Was that necessary? Was that really necessary?
Yeah, I had it, and I had to do it.
Yeah, yes, you did.
But yeah, curious what that casting process was.
Well, once I discovered what I thought Lucy Pebble was doing, I really realized that it was Lorna's story and Lorna's journey. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I discussed with Paul is I don't think we can do this unless we can find our Lorna, because she's, her process is really what's being magnified through all the other layers of the story. And then we did just a huge casting. It was huge, right, Paul? We did Actors Access. We brought in people we wanted to see. Paul had a lot of people. I had several people, and then a lot of people we didn't know. And we were just really diligent about it. And as John makes fun of me, I gave a lot of sides because I really wanted to make sure that the actors were right. So all of these actors were reading against several actors.
That's so cool. I mean, so
Trina, I remember you were in the audition room. What stood out to you reading actors, either from this group or just in general? What were things that you noticed or takeaways in the casting session?
Yeah, I mean, we saw, a lot of people, and it was, it was a wonderful experience, just being surprised in different ways. And I thought it was just a really, kind of looking at the complexity and who really, fit those different roles. And so it was a really kind of wonderful experience. And I think it's mixing and matching, kind of having those callbacks and seeing the actors read with one another and seeing the chemistry there. And I think all of that was really helpful to really get a sense of who felt right for the different characters.
Leah, I want to bring Leah in. Leah, did you have an idea after the callbacks? Like, did you feel like the callbacks went well because they did do kind of like chemistry reads or pairing up? How did you feel auditioning and then coming back for the callbacks and reading with different people? How did you feel on the actor side?
I mean, it's really hard to tell as an actress. Like when you
Always.
think something is good as an audition, I've had auditions where I'm like, that was amazing, and then nothing, and then other auditions where I'm like, that's horrible, and then you look at the initial audition felt good because I really loved the monologue and I had enough time to memorize it. And for me, if I can memorize something, I feel like you can just be a lot freer with it. And that's not always, especially nowadays where everything's such a fast turnaround because it's all self-tapes and this was live, which was nice, but there was enough time to actually dig into the material and make a bunch of choices. And then the callback, I knew at that point it was really just based on what chemistry you want. You know, I know the other actresses that were there, like if you want me, you're gonna get me. If you want somebody older or younger or something, that there's just a different chemistry, because I think at that point there weren't as many Lorna's callbacks, so it was more about what chemistry matched with what.
Kymberly, for you, was it pretty obvious in callbacks, like who was standing out? I mean, I know that can be challenging, but just for like actors when they're auditioning, I mean, I feel like a lot of times they can do a great job and that's like, great, you know, you did a wonderful job, but it's like, but this person just like is that part or something like that. Did you feel that, you know, watching that and stuff?
If you don't say my name right now, I'm going to be very upset.
Well, with Paul, it was so interesting because I knew him as a colleague and hadn't seen him act. And then when he was reading, he was sitting next to me and he was reading with all the Connies. And I thought, wow, okay. I didn't know I had never seen those layers of him. So I will say that, honestly. No one was the part though. I think these characters are so layered and it's, you know, it sets, you know, there's certain expertise that each character has that the actors, you know, learned or, you know, found a way to experience. So it really came down to talent and skill in this audition process more than, you know, someone just being the role for this particular play. But we found you all.
That's really interesting. I love that idea because I think a lot of times you hear, well, like that person was just perfect for it. It's like, well, then what about all the work and stuff we're doing behind that? And so hearing that is good to hear because it's like, well, no, I see where they're at and I see where they could go, the potential in a sense. And as we have time to, you know, work it, then we'll find even more layers like you're talking about. Well, that's wonderful. I want to bring Jackie into the conversation. Jackie, I knew I was a fan of yours because at the table read, you were laughing at all my jokes. So did you have a good feeling, Jackie, at the table read about the play and about your part, or, you know,
I did, but I remember saying that, oh God, I feel like I've been miscast because at the time it was double cast. And when I heard the second reading, I was like, oh, I've read it all completely wrong. And I like what she was bringing to the table, even though we're completely different. But yeah, I just thought like, oh, maybe I should be interpreting it that way or what. So I think I was just like, oh no.
Sure. I'm so curious about the whole process when it came to like wardrobe and like the set, because everything is so immaculate when I saw it. So I'm just curious, like Trina, like with the wardrobe, like how was that process? Where did you go? And then eventually I'm going to shift over to Paul with when it comes to the set design and like how to, because I hear you're quite the handyman, so I don't know how you know all that because I'm so bad.
Yeah, he's from Maine. He knows everything with handy stuff, the tools. He's from Maine.
Yeah, it felt like quite a collaborative process. You know, Kymberly and I met a couple of times to discuss, you know, ideas for costumes and sort of each character and their personalities and how we wanted to reflect that in their outfits. And then also thought about colors and the sort of symbolism as we looked at the different characters and their journeys. So, you know, with Lorna, the idea of the burgundy dress, we talked about this idea of her wanting to get through that red door, you know, to freedom, and also this idea of perhaps the different emotions, this depression that she's experiencing internally. And then, with Jackie, for example, we were thinking of the stripes initially as possibly this idea of feeling that duality or that divided nature, and kind of over the course of her journey, feeling a bit more integrated and that kind of healing through that experience. So just different discussions there, and collaborating to work around those costumes and kind of represent the different characters in the story.
Yeah, like
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Trina was incredible with costume because she thinks very metaphorically like I do. And she was so, it was a very easy conversation around symbolism, and just, she's a really good reader of story. So, it goes so beyond the layer of just, external fabrics. In working with her with costume, it was really good to collaborate with you, Trina, on that.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's cool about where, Kymberly and Trina, you found, with the actors, is like the wardrobe and costume, it feels kind of seamless, if that makes sense. It all kind of flows together, which is a really cool thing. So nothing really stands out in like an obvious, obnoxious way in a sense, but it kind of flows together, even what they're wearing for like the study and things like that. I think all that, kind of fits into the world. Right. And speaking of the world, yeah, I know you mentioned it, Corbin, Paul, with kind of setting up the set, and Kymberly talking through that. How did that go about? Because it's kind of an interesting set.
Yeah. So we work with a really awesome scenic designer. Her name's Eli Smith, and I've worked with her a lot in the past. Eli is a brain and an artist, and I think like borderline scientist. I think, like, I don't know, like she's really, really talented. I've worked with her a lot. So it was really just a matter of partnering Kymberly and Eli together, and then just keeping my eyes on it throughout the process, because they're both extremely talented. And my job is really just to build the thing, and Kymberly throughout the entire process was getting really nervous about me having to build things. But for myself, that just helps. It's like putting on a costume. I am not good at dressing, right? Like this is, how you all can, whatever. I am not good at dressing myself. But one thing that I like to be able to do is build the set and help with lights and things like that. It puts me more into the world. But it's mostly just getting Kymberly and Eli together and really letting them run. There was a point when there was a railroad in the set, Kymberly. I remember that as part of the set design. But it was just a lot of fun to listen to Eli and Kymberly bring this thing into life.
Yeah, Kymberly, how did the set itself feel? And at this point, Corbin's going to flash a picture of the set in post, so we'll get that up, right, Corbin?
Oh,
Thank you.
Sure.
So, Kymberly, how did it feel? Did your vision feel like it came out with how the set ended up? What you were thinking about with it?
Well, yeah, I mean, this was maybe the most interesting aspect of working on this play, because Prebble has set up 3 spaces. One is this very clinical space where everything's monitored, hearts are monitored, brains are monitored. And then there's this very raw primal space where these human beings are living and being experimented on. And then there's this sort of invisible space in between that I think is where love lives. And it somehow comes out of, the relationship between the experiment and this very clinical world. So, how to create all of that. But with Eli, she was really experienced in hypernaturalism, and I would call it a little surreal what's set up, but also what she's done is it's almost like it's a film, So as a filmmaker, it was interesting too, because she just has you moving from location to location in one space. And it's fascinating, really. So we talked a lot about, the themes and sort of hearts being in cages. And we talked a lot about how to sort of create Lorna's mind through the set and what she's going through the set. And then, of course, we have these cracks that are sort of these synapses of the brain that sort of light up. So you've got, something very realistic and something surrealistic going on at the same time.
Yeah, that was something people mentioned to me. They really loved along the floor. That these cracks that are like they kind of like light up, like you're saying, like the inside of a brain, but it's right there on the floor. Leah, to you, because you're kind of roaming through the whole set, it's in itself. What feels most like, I don't know, personal or not personal, or most, like what space do you like or don't, like how do you feel in the different areas?
I mean, I like my desk the best. That's a little safe area, and I have it set up exactly. And it's kind of fun when, especially your character comes in and it touches anything on my desk, because I'm like, that's my space. And that to me, Lorna is a little a neat freak and very organized, which I personally am not particularly organized. So I liked to have everything set up a certain way, and then if somebody comes and messes with it, it's kind of fun for me to kind of react to that.
I kind of want to dive into with all the actors. Like, what was the thing that drew you to the play, as well as what did you find surprising later as you started to dive even deeper? And I'll start with you, Jackie.
Yeah, and if Jackie doesn't say my name now, I'm going to be real.
Everybody mentioned Paul.
Paul.
Cool. I didn't even know you were going to be in it. I didn't even know you were auditioning it until the day of the audition or the callback, because I'm one of those people where I did a self-tape for the first audition. What drew me? I mean, one, I think because it is English, I liked that. But originally, when we were doing the table read, we were like, oh, it's going to be American. And I was like, but
it's okay. That's all right.
But yeah, so I mean, I liked the writing of it.
Yeah.
I liked Connie. I thought she was quite complex and like interesting, and I felt quite similar to her, so it was that kind of drew me to it a little bit.
I mean, your character goes through such a journey. It's so scary to see you go through all those different emotions. I'm like, that's kind of why I'm curious. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted.
What night did you come?
The first night, the opening night.
Opening night. He came opening night.
But yeah, no, I think I did like mainly the dialogue. I liked how it was, and it wasn't too. Sometimes you're reading plays, and they can become really abstract, and you're like, wait, sorry, what's going on? So I'm glad that it wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
what about you, John? I mean, we've been asking questions, but I'm curious, what were your thoughts on the character?
Well, I mean, it really was Kymberly. So I've worked with, because based on what they're paying me, it's way below my rate. You know that, Corbin. Like my rate's much higher. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. It really was Kymberly. I worked with Kymberly a couple of years ago on the play Fool for Love by Sam Shepard, which is just an amazing play. And we did it in LA and we did it in New York. And it was just it's a magical piece. And it was wonderful working with Kymberly. And I feel like she has this great ability to really push actors and push and get the best out of them. And it's coming from a place of like, let's make the piece amazing. And because of that, when she had reached out and said I was working on this play, and then I read the play and I'm like, this play is amazing. Those two things. And then it's funny, I did a little research and I looked up 66 Productions and saw what they did. I was like, okay, cool. They did some neat stuff. They did some stuff with John Patrick Shanley. I was like, great. I love meeting new people that are creating in the space, in theater and TV and film, that are doing things, at whatever level. And I thought this was going to be great. And I've been so happy to be a part of it, and just the professionalism and how seriously people are treating it. All of that, and obviously the piece itself and the role, but I really think for me, I guess a lot of it comes down to the people around it. That's really what brought me in.
I like that.
Yeah.
And what about you, Leah? Where did you land with this character?
Well, I kind of came from the outside and then in. I've been a really big fan of 66, and I've seen a lot of their plays and really, really wanted to be a part of it. And then did a storytelling show of theirs around Thanksgiving time. And like the whole time I was like, how do I get in and do more? And then I saw that they were doing auditions on Facebook, and then contacted the two people that I knew that were involved. And I was like, hey, maybe don't use auditions. And then I read the play. so I kind of was like, oh, I want to be in with these people, and then read the play and I was like, oh yeah, I really want to do this piece as well.
Amazing. And finally, Paul, you can mention yourself in your own.
Paul got Paul excited about the play.
I
I'm
mean,
curious about that too, because you have been directing and producing and artistic directing and technical directing, and this is the first time you've given yourself an opportunity to act in something in a long time. And I am also super curious as to, what drew you to Tristan. I thank God you did, because you're just fantastic. I love you in this role so much, but I'm curious why was this the one for you?
I don't know.
I just
I
asked
like-
a question. Corbin, sorry.
No, that's I loved it.
Well, I guess this is the moving spotlight hosted by Kymberly Harris now. All right. I guess we've given up the title. That's fine. That's fine. I love it.
Yeah, I like to have my hands on a lot of things. Myself and my founding members, we built this company and really, quite literally from the ground up. And I haven't been selfish as an actor for a very long time. Like for a very, very long time. I've either been directing or producing or building or TDing or whatever in some capacity. But I also didn't really have the story that I felt was necessary for me to be like, okay, now's my turn. I didn't, some of the other material that we had, at 66, we really try hard to make it about the story. Like we really, really try hard to make sure that the story that we are trying to tell is intended for the audience and not intended for the artist behind it. Like and I really try to hold myself accountable to that as well, and not to be selfish when those times come, because I don't feel like it's necessary for my growth or for the growth of the company. But when I read this piece and I had seen some people work it, I was like, I can fucking do that better. And so I allowed myself to be a little bit selfish, and honestly, the pandemic was part of that. So we had a really rough few years, just like everybody. And in order to get the company back up and running and back up and going, I wanted to make sure that I had a piece that I could step behind and really commit my soul to in a really hopefully wonderful way.
I love that. And yeah, beautiful answer, Paul. And I do tell actors, I mean, I feel like you're using the word selfish, and that can feel like maybe it could have negative, but it's not negative. And what I mean by that is a lot of times, like if someone is putting a shit ton of work into something, like let's say a play, and they're like, we're starting a theater company. I'm always like, get in that first production, because that could be the only production you do. It's not selfish to get yourself in there. I don't think it's like you're putting a ton of work in. If that's what you really want to do, be a part of it. Oh, we're going to do a series of 5 films. Be in the first one, because you might not, maybe you do 5, hopefully you do, but I've been part of a lot of projects. It's really challenging. So I love hearing that, Paul, because I've seen the work you're putting in. You're great in the role. So I think that all makes sense, and it all resonates. I did have just a side question. We were talking about 66, and I see the Route 66 behind you. Is it called 66 because of Route 66, or is that just because it's called 66 and you picked that up?
Yeah, so my friends Coleman Kelly and Maggie Cleary and I started this company while drinking at a bar on Route 66. We had seen some local theater that was, quote unquote good, right? Like some good theater, and it was not good.
No, but I love that, Paul. I've driven Route 66 with my dad twice, and we've stopped at like Cadillac Ranch. We've stopped at all these great places. So I didn't know that, but Route 66 has a lot of meaning to me. So that's a really, really cool to find that. I want to deep dive. The play has some pretty intense themes, and I just want to open it up a little bit and just talk about like, one of the themes it addresses is, mental health awareness and depression and things like that. We are in Mental Health Awareness Month. Is that correct, Kymberly? I think you know a little more than me, but yeah. And I just was curious, maybe who wants to kind of start, talking about either how that resonates with them, the theme, or, thoughts on that. And it's a little more open forum. Anybody have any thoughts?
I will say I was very surprised how many people. We've only had 3 performances. I mean, I would say like at least 10 or 12 people have come up to me after the show and they're like, can I hug you? And I'm like, sure. That they're just so appreciative that someone is doing a piece about depression, about antidepressants, and people have confided in me that I've been on antidepressants for a really long time, and I'm so glad that you're bringing this awareness to and doing a piece about it. And I loved the play and loved some of the themes, but I didn't realize it would be so. I mean, this one man, like, he started to cry, and like I held him for a while. It was a very like, it was a really, and I had no idea who he is. Like it was all because of this piece. It's been very, very touching and emotional. And I didn't know that I knew it would affect people, but I didn't know it would be like that. Not only did it affect them, but it was like, they felt connected to me, like in a personal way. Like they just wanted to physically touch me and be like, hey, I thank you for doing this. And so that's been a really amazing, interesting thing that I didn't anticipate.
Who else?
Yeah. No, that's everything to me. I mean, I the people that have been so, well, first of all, it really speaks to the 4 of you because you're playing it, with all you've got, like Paul said, with your soul, your, everything on the line, and really humanizing your process, each of your process in the play. And people can then feel themselves in these characters. And I think the timing of this was so interesting because the pandemic was the first time that we all had this chance to sort of get introspective about our lives because everything stopped. But also people suffered from a lot of depression, a lot of loneliness, a lot of isolation. Love relationships broke up because people couldn't stand to be caged together. The ones that lasted, now they feel like they can last forever. I mean, there are so many really existential points that are hitting the play. And the mental health crisis, I was watching this documentary the other night called Bedlam, and I guess 37% of the jails now are actually mentally ill people. In the 70s, Reagan switched the funding to mental hospitals from federal to state, and then all these mental hospitals closed, and they just put all of the mentally ill, those struggling with mental illness, on the streets. And so, of course, that's a huge part of the homeless population too. And then this other issue of not being able to afford because pharmaceuticals are for profit, right? Mm-hmm. As depicted in your character, John, and people can really make a living off of peddling these pharmaceuticals. And, so where is that line? Where is that line between medicating mental illness and then what Lorna says, which is maybe I need to process this without fixing it. Mm-hmm. It's so complex. And I also, Toby, your line about we're all, when are we going to have a mentally challenged moment, because we all are, is also true, and so having some transparency around the fact that everyone experiences some level of dysregulation in their lives, if they're human, and kind of getting that into the conversation has like Leah was saying, is just, I can't believe how it's been touching people. Someone came up to me and said, thank you so much for doing this play. I just experiencing it changed me and shifted me in a way. And I think, again, because they felt better, like they had a cathartic experience watching it. And it was this young woman. And Again, I think just bringing the transparency, of the struggles helps people, feel it and feel less alone when they see that.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, Kimber, this idea of like when someone's feeling down, maybe that's when they need to reach out to people, but it's like when you feel least like you want to reach out to people, that's like when you should, but that's when you feel least likely to. And then when you're feeling good, you're like, oh, now I'm doing all this stuff. And I think it is that feeling of feeling alone, or I have to do this myself, or whatever that is. I think, it can be a challenge, especially with what, we all just went through.
And we see Leah's character, Lorna, sort of braving through it, acting as if it's not happening. There's so much shame around it too. And we can't make a living if we stop in this country, and maybe in the world, but you can't really, and you see her sort of braving through everything, and then it slowly comes out because it has to come out. It has to come out. It's going to come out. Yeah.
That's a great point. Anybody else? Any thoughts on that?
Becky, how's your mental health?
You know what? I think I've just succumbed to being anxious and covered with or riddled with anxiety constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And the one time it actually stopped for me was right when COVID happened. I think I was like my happiest. And I'm not trying to take away from like what had happened to a lot of people, but it felt that I wasn't on the like in the hamster wheel. I wasn't trying to compete against anyone, and everyone was in the same boat. And I was like, yes, I actually was very content and didn't have any anxiety during then. So yeah.
Well, what was nice about it too, Jackie? It's like not only your hamster wheel didn't have to move or wasn't moving, the ones next to you. So you don't feel like you're getting behind too, right? Exactly. Like,
but it's only about us, and it's like, don't compare yourself to anyone else. But yeah, I do it. I compare. And it was just nice that everyone had stopped. And because I feel like I'm always like this, I actually felt better than most people. I think other people suffered. And I was like, oh no, this is great. This is perfect. Obviously, I know there was a lot of hardship for other people, but I just mean mentally for me, it was better.
Yeah.
One of the themes that I kept thinking of throughout this play was, or I guess a quote is, "'Tis better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all." And like that feeling of, is love a drug? Is it a force of good or evil? And I kind of want to open this up to everybody as well. Like, anybody have any opinions on if love is a good thing or a bad thing, or if like, is it kind of both sometimes? Like, what are your
careful
thoughts?
what you say? Corbett just went through a breakup.
That is
all
true.
right. So he's very fragile. So
very
if he
hurt.
starts crying, we'll mute him.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's okay to cry.
Very much worth it, whether it's good or bad. You live, you experience something.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to have your sour before you have your sweet. So
I like that.
Vanilla Sky, everyone.
I feel like I've had so much salad. It's interesting because I think this play is open to interpretation in certain ways, but I think it's hopeful. I think in the end, love is a healing force, and it's stronger than drugs or medication or circumstances. And I think that's something really beautiful about the play. And it makes me wonder, had Toby and Lorna had something, real, like if it could have sustained, how that would have affected her depression.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a question that the play really, really brings up. I mean, I'm pro love, but I think it can be as hard as the play is to be vulnerable, to risk, to hold people and all their flaws, like Connie and Tristan do. She really goes into all of the machinations of a love relationship.
Well, it's I was also thinking this idea, if love just happens or if it's kind of can be created, which is something that happens in the play. And one of the things I'm thinking about I remember, I don't know, they might not want me sharing this, but I remember when my sister was trying to find someone to be with, my mom gave her one book that was like, how to find, like the person of your dreams. And then another book that was like, maybe it's time to settle. So she gave her both. Like one was like, keep looking for this. And the other was like, it's okay to settle. It was like both ends of the spectrum. I think my sister was like, what am I supposed to do with this? But I think there's something interesting for me of, if you get hit with the love thunderbolt, that's one thing, but there's also something of, I don't think love is super simple. I mean, I know we all believe that, but my point is I don't think it's as simple as like, I'm in love with this person, end of story, white picket fence and all these things. There's work involved, there's ups and downs, there's good and bad, and I think that's what's interesting for me about it is it is complicated. But I am also like Kymberly, I'm pro-love, Corbin. We're both pro-love.
Am I the only one who's not?
Trina, Paul, any thoughts on this, or Leah too? I guess.
Well, Trina is the therapist amongst us, so yeah. Trina,
oh Jesus, are we gonna get a bill at the end of this, Trina? Are we all in trouble?
I need to book a session with her.
Are you free for a couple questions?
Let me know anyway. No, but I agree. I mean, I'm just thinking about the idea of love being a risk. It's very, we feel very exposed, obviously, when we do love, and but ultimately, it can be so rewarding as well. And I'm just thinking about the idea of heartbreak, and that theme in the play. I believe Lucy Pebble was going through some of that around the time that she was writing it, and it made me think about heartbreak in different ways. Maybe not. I mean, in addition to kind of romantic relationships, also the different heartbreaks that we experience in our lifetime, whether it's with attachment figures and these different experiences, and how we defend against these, our vulnerability over time. And I think it's just this idea of working through that and overcoming the fears, and this idea of how do we open our hearts again to love after heartbreak. And I'm just thinking of this idea of how it's sometimes so terrifying to feel seen, but also something that we all really ultimately want. So definitely complex. But.
No, so beautiful. And it's so interesting, Tristan's character, how, with Connie, because she's, she is guarded at the beginning and she's already in a relationship, and how Tristan keeps encouraging Connie to risk. That's very much a part of the language of the play, and sort of this idea that you have to jump into the unknown in order to actually connect with another person. And I think that's terrifying. And then, of course, if it doesn't work out, it can be depressing, very depressing. Yeah.
I think it also, it's interesting being in relationships at different ages. And what I mean by that is I feel like when you're a little bit older and like you're dating, what you like and don't like. So you're less likely to take risk or try something new, if that makes sense. So like, if someone you're interested in, they're like, oh, let's go to sushi. And you're like, I know I don't like sushi. I've tried before. But I feel like when you're younger, there's something about, no, but I'm just saying like there's something. And so I guess what I'm also saying is like, I think this idea of allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, allowing ourselves to fall in love, protecting ourselves, sealing ourselves off. I think that's an interesting thing of how we do that or don't do that, and I think in the play, it kind of deals with that at different times, someone who's been through heartbreak and is dealing with it, and someone who's maybe still hopeful, in different phases. Yeah. Paul or Leah, any thoughts on this?
For me, what I love that Lucy does really, really well is that she allows the characters to be seen. She really allows their flaws to be seen, not only in private moments, so to say, but for other people to witness them as well. The characters opposite of them. So the fears around love, the expectations of being hurt again, or, abandoned again, or it not working out again. She really allowed that to be there for each one of the characters based on where they're coming from and what their internal motivations are. So as a fellow human, you know, exposing yourself like that and being okay to be seen, and then being supported by a team, not only co-stars and writers and directors and designers and all of that, but also by the audience to let them know that it's okay. You know, that like you're saying, John, that vulnerability is okay. And I don't know if we are capable. I don't know, Trina, we'll talk about this later. I don't know if we are capable of giving and receiving love unless you're willing to be seen, you know.
I think that's true. I think it's like your cup has to be full before you can offer anything from there, and I think that's very well put. And it's nice with this play too, because you can see that there's so many human things that I've experienced that I think is alone for me, but it's actually the human experience, like loving and like trying to fix things immediately. Actually, that's something I wanted to ask, especially your input, Kymberly, is we all want to fix things right away. We really want to just get over that hurdle with like the heartbreak or all the things, or fall in love quickly. How do you think this play tackles that kind of avenue when it comes to medication and discovering this drug that makes you fall in love, or, you know, is it a placebo effect and things of that nature?
Oh, that means it's juicy. That means it's juicy. When Kymberly makes that sound, that means she likes it. That means this is like a tasty, moist cake for her. It's like a tasty, moist cake.
You're so funny. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's, you know, I definitely think that everyone is, I think Trina was talking about sort of the defenses that you come into a situation with or a relationship with, and how, you know, that informs everything. And it's interesting with Lorna's character because it feels as if she, you know, has this hope from a past love. So there's also this thing of, are you looking for love in the future, or are you still hanging on to love from the past? And in terms of fixing things, you know, if we're in this very for-profit, instant gratification mode, you know, that, as Jackie was saying, kind of stopped for the first time in our lifetimes, maybe in the pandemic, you know, you to really stop and risk and be vulnerable and be messy, when is there a space for that? When is there time for that? And then with the drugs, you know, it's like, okay, well, I have to show up for this. So here, take this drug, you know, don't feel sad. Don't feel angry, you know, don't feel, you know, don't grieve, don't stop and grieve because you have to go make money. You have to go show up for something. And I think we've gotten to such an extreme in our culture of you know, fixing everything and an image rather than, you know, really a human experience. And we have to be so diligent to actually have a human experience. So I don't know if that answered your question at all, but I think, you know, I obviously very much believe in medication for people that, well, not obviously, I guess some people wouldn't, but I of course believe in medication for people that need it, you know, but I also think that we self-medicate to just keep on moving through, and then you not experience your actual you know, moment of what you're actually going through, because it's not convenient in some way.
I love that.
Yeah, I agree. There's a really great, my favorite line in the play is when Lorna says, you know, what if it's a useful pain that's throbbing, saying, change your life, change your life. I love that line because and then the next part is, and then you come along with your pills and you take all that away, that there is something kind of useful in pain, that we now as a society decided that everything is instant gratification, including pleasure, that we don't take a moment and say, maybe it's okay to sit in this for a moment. And of course, like he was saying, I would never say that you should suffer for long periods of time, but maybe it's okay to take this and really feel it, that there may be a benefit to that there may be a yin and a yang to it, that if you go through Like I don't, when I gave birth, I didn't have any pills and whatever. If people need an epidural, that's fine. But, and not, but also you shouldn't get one. But there is a benefit afterwards. We get these amazing endorphin rushes because we do that pain, and then you can, there's a kind of a yin and yang to kind of dealing with some of the pain, and there's a benefit sometimes to feeling something completely instead of medicating. And I think right now, because our society is always like, you gotta go, we don't say, you know what, maybe you should take a day, a week, a month, a year, or whatever, and process things and come out of it in a different place.
Yeah, and I think in the acting career or the entertainment industry as well, you feel like, okay, I have to have something new, and that's almost the opposite of art, you know, and you know how to navigate all of that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this idea that I feel like sometimes, let's say you didn't have the ups and downs, you just want it to be going up all the time. Or, you know, when they talk about that with, like, I don't know, the economy should always be growing. Well, that's not really the cycle of life and nature, if that makes sense. You know, it's more cyclical. I think that's part of the journey, is like, you know, the feeling good, the feeling bad. Like it's a bit of kind of inherent in, you know, it happens just like in nature. If there's too many of this animal, then they starve and they drop down a little bit. And then this, you know, but it kind of is, it's a bit of it. It balances itself over time. But I really don't believe a lot of things like should be on this like exponential continuing to always be going up. It just, you know, so that is really interesting. I did have a question. If anyone else has favorite lines from the play, I like that you mentioned that, Leah. Does anyone else have favorite lines from the play? Jackie, we haven't heard from you in a while.
I feel like I have to do another rehearsal. I'm like, oh my God, I can't remember any of my lines.
Get it out of me.
The only line is coming to me is like, do you want my biscuit? That's it. Come back to me.
Okay. Anybody else have a favorite line that they want to
What's
mention?
yours, John?
Yeah, what's yours?
Oh, man. There's a couple I really like. I mean, I think for some reason, I guess I like I built a bit of my brain around you for some reason. That feels like for something with Toby that like that was really important to me in kind of figuring out him and thinking the way he sees the world. Because my character is a little more of an entrepreneur. He's a little more CEO, a little less heart than the other characters. So for some reason that line really resonated with me. And I like your line, Paul, about holding back. I don't know it exactly because I'm not out there, but holding back the ocean or something like that for her. Yeah, I really love that line too.
Yeah. I think that my favorite, because Tristan, it's not that he's basic, it's just that things are pretty clear to him. I feel like he lives by a code of ethics of some sort, you know. But what I really enjoy is probably during the asylum scene when he tells Connie that he's done all kinds of drugs, right? But it doesn't matter about the amount of fake stimulation or outside stimulation that you give yourself. It doesn't change the fact that when you look at somebody and really find them attractive, or when you listen to somebody and really find them interesting, or when you're close to them that you really know. And that line has always come through so honestly. It's like, it's not a line, you know, it really feels like he is speaking the truth there. And I really love it because a lot of characters and pieces, they lie all the time, right? They're just like constantly lying. But in this moment, like I get to tell Connie that she's mine and that I'm hers, and that's okay.
I remember that line. That's one of the lines that stuck into my brain too, like that whole moment. So it's interesting that you're saying it's when he's being the most honest. I like that a lot. What about you, Kymberly?
It's interesting, all three of them so far. We haven't heard Jackie's yet, but the three of you all picked the one line where you sort of unveil, you take down your guard and sort of show your truth.
Mhm.
I love that.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah.
No pressure, Jackie.
no
When-
pressure.
Wow. Jackie's rereading the play right now. She just pulled out the play. She's like, I'm in a play? What is it done? Is it finished?
I always feel so uncomfortable. So
Poor Jackie, we totally put her on the spot.
She's had like 3 people to go. She's had a lot of time, Leah. She's not on the spot. She's had a lot of
it's not
time.
necessarily a line. It's just like when you're in it, there's just like there's these snippets or these moments where it just feels organic, or I don't know if I have like necessarily a favorite line. I think one of my favorite lines in the play is actually what Leah says in your scene, where she's saying like about just experiencing it, and maybe you have to go through with it, to just feel. I think I'm on my bed just listening in a moment, but I always hear that and it always resonates with me. So yeah, I think sometimes you just have to experience life, and it's not about a quick fix.
Yeah.
You learn from your experiences and mishaps and whatnot, and they just make you.
Yeah. Trina, is there any lines that stood out to you?
Didn't answer the question, I'm sorry.
No, you
No,
did.
that's great. No, that's wonderful.
Mine would be, same one actually, the one about depression being useful. The symptoms being useful and something to pay attention to, because I think that's such a powerful line and so important. I think so often, like we were talking about earlier, that, when we feel any kind of pain or impulses to pull away and to find ways to distract or numb it, but the importance of really kind of sitting with it and tuning in and paying attention to what it's trying to say. And it's kind of that idea of the only way out is through, Robert Frost. And I think that really is an important line. And also Tristan's one about some people never get loved like that. I think it's kind of a powerful one in terms of just shifting that perspective and seeing, those experiences, as a beautiful, whether it's memory or experience to learn from, or so much there. But those would be my 2 favorite that are coming up right now.
Right.
Yeah, that one hurts to say. I hate saying that one. It's like admitting that it's such a silly little.
Right. Well, this has just been wonderful.
I just got started, man. Already?
Kymberly, we're almost at the hour mark. I know you want to keep going. Okay. I did want to end on a high note. Okay. Corbin, do you want to let them know what's going on?
Sure. Yeah. Usually we have a segment called Your Best Bad Acting, but this time John is going to do impressions of each one of you, and then you all can do impressions of him to get it
Great.
back.
Great. So we're gonna make these quick. We're gonna make these real quick and have really fun with them. Okay. So this is Trina, and you'll be able to hear it. You can see it if you're watching it. This is Trina after I've tried on like a new sweater. What do you think, Trina? Yeah, I don't know. What do you? Yeah, no, I like it, but no. Okay, that's Trina. Thank you, Trina. There's Trina. Great. Here's Leah. We've just done a run through. Oh my God, my husband's just in an accident. Oh, my 2 boys are both sick. Oh no, life outside. I'm the president of the PTA and everything's falling apart. That's Leah. Here's Jackie. She's just done an amazing scene. Oh my God, that was shy. It was just so much shy. Like I was just terrible. I was so bad. I wasn't even in it. I was terrible. It was shy. It was so shy. And then here's Paul. Camp life. Okay. These are all meant with love. And then Kymberly, my favorite. Oh my God. My heart was breaking. My heart was breaking. I was crying. It was amazing. I loved it. The scene was perfect. I just want to run it 47 more times. I just want to run it 47 more, but it's so perfect. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much. That's it. Those are my impressions. That's my time.
Very nice.
Thank you for indulging. They were all met with love.
Someone has to do John.
Yeah, somebody has to do it.
Impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. I see, Corbin.
Yeah,
There's
it's hard. Yes, nothing there. Yeah, it's okay.
Nothing
I feel
there.
like Paul's got one loaded. I feel like Paul, you got some sort of John in there.
Sneakers. You need some colorful sneakers.
Sneakers.
Yes.
Always have the brightest sneakers. Like red or like purple rainbow color.
That's his impression.
I don't know. John likes to make an entrance. Whenever he's there, we all know.
He's always got the biggest smile. He's smiley, Mr. Smiley.
Kymberly, I had this idea. Okay, ready?
That's it.
Kymberly, I got this idea. What if I try this? And there's a whole interaction there, and we.
Boom.
Yeah, perfect.
I got a lot
That
of
was great.
ideas. That's true. That's it, Paul. That's right. That's right. Awesome. Well, of course, we could always go longer. I know we could. This was so wonderful. Great having you all here. And if people are in Los Angeles, please, the month of May, the first 3 weekends, we're getting this podcast out right away. Share this podcast. Come see the show. It's in West Hollywood at in the Marilyn Monroe Theater at the Lee Strasberg Institute, Santa Monica and Fairfax. It's a great show. I know I'm biased, but really people put a lot of time and work into it. And people have really been enjoying it. We got our first review, which was great. So that was wonderful. So please, if you want, check out the show. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Trina, Kymberly, Paul, Jackie, Leah, and Corbin, thank you for, helping co-host this, obviously, and kind of helping lead this charge. So this was just wonderful. Thanks so much for taking the time out and doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks
What
for
a
having
pleasure.
us.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.
That was a great deep dive
So
into the
fun.
cast and crew of the play The Effect. If you're in the Los Angeles area and want to get tickets, go to 66productions.org. Show runs the first 3 weekends of May. You got to check it out, Corbin.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see John up there on the stage, go check it out. This whole cast and
You've
crew
got
is amazing.
opportunities. You've got opportunities May 6th, May 7th, May 8th, May 9th, May 13th, May 14th, May 15th, May 16th, May 20th, and May 21st.
Perfect.
That's all of them. All right, folks, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to the
Movie Spotlight Podcast.